Well, here's a sneak peek at the only Republic Razorback Thunderbolt that's flying. Bonnie, everything is done and she's ready to make her way to Oshkosh. Some things I want to point out, besides for the obvious artwork and the awesome scorecard, everything's done. Let's see, show some unique features of this airplane. It's the wastegates. Wastegates on the exhaust. When you close the wastegates, it runs the exhaust all the way to the back of the airplane to the turbo supercharger, and then the pressurized air comes back through tubes along the side of the cockpit back to the carburetor, up to the carburetor. These are the oil cooler outlet doors, so fresh air comes in through the cowling. The oil cooler is just inside the door, and there's an electric motor with a lever in the cockpit. You can open or close these oil cooler doors simultaneously. So one motor, and it has worm gears that go to both sides. The left side of the airplane, oil cooler exit door, and the right side. So one motor controls both of those. Another unique feature, Curtis Electric prop. Not all P-47s have the Curtis Electric, but this one has Curtis Electric. Landing gear are a piece of art on this airplane. Pretty complicated landing gear, but when everything's working, they work good. The main strut. This little strut that you see right there, that's called the shrinkage strut. And what that does is it compresses the oleo right there, and when you retract the landing gear, or when you pull the landing gear up, it sucks in the wheel so that it takes up as least amount of room in the wing as possible. This is kind of an ingenious thing we made up to tow bar. The tow hook is in the torque links of the airplane, and we just kind of developed this little bracket to go onto the torque links to tow it. We don't have the pylons on this airplane right now, but one thing that Republic did is the pylons are meant to come off or on. Everything works and the pylons would be able to go on. There's some of the holes where the pylons physically bolt to the wing. The fuel, if you're running drop tanks, there's the fuel outlet. Everything's plumbed and everything's ready to go. But Republic had a way to combat not having the pylons on there. You put this little fence on. So we put this fence on, and the purpose of this fence is to keep the shells ejected from the 50 cals in each wing. It keeps the shells from getting jammed in this little spot between the flap and between the aileron. So this little fence is supposed to be put on the airplane if you do not have pylons. Just some more views of the absolute perfect paint job on this. Everything's perfect. A lot of people ask about when you look at the aluminum and know it's never ever been polished. So it bugs me when people call it polished aluminum. This is just straight aluminum that has just been cared for tremendously hard. But these dull gray lines, anytime on the airplane, there's a lot up on the cowling, anytime you see these dull gray lines, that is where there's spot welds. And so you etch and you clean the aluminum before you spot weld it. So anytime you see any of these kind of gray lines, that's where there's spot welds. Way down here, when the wastegate is closed, this is actually where the exhaust comes out of the airplane. So after the exhaust is run all the way back to the turbo, it leaves the airplane through this exhaust, which is at the very bottom, the belly of the airplane. These vents, which a lot of people think are for exhaust, are actually for the intercooler. It uses fresh air, runs it through the intercooler, which cools the air coming out of the turbo, going back to the carburetor. And these doors are adjustable, so you can adjust the amount of air going through the intercooler. There's some more of the marks for where it's been spot welded. You can see the etching on there. The airplane looks absolutely perfect. Well, that's a quick walk around of the only Republic Razorback Thunderbolt around. It was made in Evansville, and let's see what else. Here's kind of radio rack. The green tank right there, that's the oil tank for the turbo. The turbo has its own oil tank, and that bar, if you can read it, it's the elevator control. The torque tubes for the elevator start from underneath the cockpit, obviously, and then they have to make this sharp turn up, and they run back to the elevator in the turtle deck. Okay, so that's a walk around to the airplane. Just one last look at the nose art, and don't forget to like this post, subscribe to my channel, and ring the bell.